You may notice that I have an Itch.io bundle page up here. This is Solo But Not Alone. It's been running for 4 years. And each year, the proceeds from this bundle go to a different nerdy mental health nonprofit. This year, it is Take This. They also run the AFK Room here and at PAX Unplugged and several other conventions. And if you would like to buy all 125 solo games for $10, you can in fact pull out your phone right now and Google Solo But Not Alone and get this whole bundle for $10. The reason I'm pulling this up is because I actually do have a game in this bundle, and we will talk a little bit about some of the games I've written, but I also want to go through sort of the medium of solo games and why we play them and why you should consider them as seriously as you would consider any other form of tabletop game. Which, to be fair, might not be super seriously, and as somebody who has written for a lot of tabletop games, there's only about a certain amount of seriousness you can take a tabletop game. Vampire. But, yeah. So, I'm going to reference this a lot. I also just like having something to look at on the screen. So, if you see anything that interests you or we want to click on something, there's my game, right there. I have no railgun and I must scream. We can talk a little bit about that during the panel, but there, like I said, there's 125 games in this panel, in this bundle. And you get that all for $10 American dollars. There's a cat. That's a really, do we think this orange cat has a brain cell, or do we think the brain cell just passed this cat by?
No.
Okay, there was no brain cell in this picture. Cool. Well, it is 3 o'clock, so thank you for putting up with my 10 minutes of vamping before we got into the panel. Hi, my name is Jacqueline Brick. I also go by Jax Romana. My pronouns are she, her, they, them, and fey, femme in roughly order of preference. Fey, femme is my formal pronoun. But I am a writer, editor, designer, general verber of tabletop games. I have been playing tabletop since I was 6 years old. I have been freelancing in tabletop games and designing my own tabletop games since 2016. And I'm here today to tell you why you should care about solo games. I know I saw some folks raise their hands earlier when I asked who had played a solo game. Can I get like, I mean, I can tell you what I think a solo game is, but can I get like a general vibes of solo games from people, from someone in the audience who's played them before?
A lot of roll and writes.
Roll and writes, yeah.
They have a solo option. They're not always necessarily built as solo games.
Yeah, they're not super sandboxy. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good one. I've seen them referred to as journaling games. That's another big one. There are some solo games. There was one written by Aura, my friend Aura, which was a solo game where you actually wrote notes to yourself about something that had happened in a house, and you hid them in different locations in the house. And every time you rediscovered one of these notes you wrote yourself, you wrote a follow-up to it. So you're essentially using your house as the play space for this solo game as opposed to a Google Doc or a journal. But let's go back to 101 for a little bit. So solo games are usually played with a Google Doc or a paper journal or stationery or sometimes Post-it notes. Anything you play a tabletop RPG or analog RPG on, you could probably play a solo game on. And these are games that are GM'd and played by one person. These are games that, as the panel says, you play with yourself. We love a very obvious joke here. For those of you just coming in, this page that I have up is Solo But Not Alone 4. which is a bundle of 125 solo games for $10 American. All of the money paid towards this goes to Take This, who run the AFK rooms here and PAX Unplugged and a couple of other places. I have a game in this bundle, and yeah, you should definitely check it out if you're looking for somewhere to start with solo games. Having 125 of them is probably a good place to start. I'm just saying. So why do we play solo games? It's a fair question. Most tabletop RPGs we are used to are social activities. They are games that you play with friends. They are collaborative storytelling. But to me, asking why do we play solo games is a little like asking, why do we play first-person shooters that aren't networked? Like, why play a computer game by yourself if you're not doing it as a social activity? And kind of sounds sillier when you frame it like that. Yeah. Because solo creativity is. I've heard people say that playing social game. Why would you play a social game? Why would you play a solo game? You're just like, I don't know. You're just writing a novel with guidelines, and you could just be writing a novel. Okay. Well, what if I don't want to write a novel? What if I just want to play something? What if I just want to do something for play, for fun? What if I just want to engage in the creative process in a way that is not actively profiting me? And I want to do that by myself. There's a whole lot of reasons people play solo games. That's my favorite is, well, you could just be writing a novel. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe fuck your conception of what writing should be. Maybe I just want to write for fun. Maybe I just want to write with some guidelines. Maybe I just want to practice being creative. Maybe it's fun for me to, we'll use my game as an example. Maybe it's fun for me to pretend to be the sibling of a mech pilot during an international crisis and dealing with the home front of a mech war rather than actually being in the mech itself. And there are plenty of solo games that do actually take place in mechs. I'm sure I can actually probably go and search that right now. Hold on. Oh look at all these mech jams. Now, you're not going to see a whole bunch of D&D solo games. You will see plenty of D&D inspired ones. Of course, D&D is such a hegemonic force in the tabletop industry that, like, oh, you might have a solo game about being a paladin in a knightly order or being a rogue in a thieves guild, but you're not really going to see D&D as a system. There are a couple of SRDs for solo games, system reference documents, for those of you who aren't familiar. The one I really enjoy using is, hello, I'm very tired, and I thought it was very funny as a bit to do this panel by myself for the solo game panel. So, if you notice me pausing, I apologize. It is Saturday at MAGFest, and I have already hit the wall. But I am going to do my best to make this as fun and informative as possible. And this is also going to be one of those panels where I'm going to ask audience questions and let you guys answer, so I hope that's fine. What was I saying? Right, there's a couple of SRDs. Wretched and Alone is a really big one. How many of you have played a tabletop game using a Jenga tower? Yeah. I think the Jenga tower, yep. I love the Jenga tower as a stress mechanic. I think it is super cool to have that visceral feeling of not knowing when it'll fall over and what will happen when it does. Wretched and Alone uses a combination of dice cards and a Jenga tower in order to simulate an unwinnable situation in such a way that you can win it, but it's a less than 2% chance of winning in one run through. And the fun comes in seeing what happens in all the different ways you can lose. I put lose in heavy quotes because it's really an end condition rather than winning or losing, and I don't find winning and losing to be a useful qualification for tabletops anyway. Yeah, so let's go ahead and look at some solo games. Do you have any questions so far? I realize I've been rambling for like 10 minutes. Yes?
As someone who's never played a solo game but has played a lot of tabletop, like, how long is a solo game session?
So, some solo games do allocate session time. Something like the original Wretched does a session time of about 20 minutes, but you do it every day. Whereas some solo games are meant to be played in one sitting over a couple of hours. Some solo games are only played when you're in a specific space. So really session times can vary as much as a tabletop RPG. Session time might vary. And like I said, the Arabelle game, Mr. Grady used to live here, which is unfortunately unpublished now, but it was very cool, is a game where you play where you are in different rooms of your house, and you play when you find the notes you left for yourself, and then you leave another note for yourself. And it's this really interesting build of like suspense and tension, because it's meant to be these notes that allude to something terrible that happened in the house. And every time you find the note again, you add more detail until it becomes a more fully realized picture. So that one is actually played by space and observation rather than in time sessions, and I think that's a really interesting way to sort of engage with the game. You sure can.
Is there a way to know what the time session is going to be?
Yep. Most games will have an ideal, like either you sit down and play this in one session, you can play this over a couple of days, you should play this like you were doing a daily journal. Most games will pretty clearly set out their expectations. I saw a hand over there. Did I see? I thought I saw a hand or a water bottle over there. What's up?
That's just arm.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Yes.
Would you liken it more to being a DM in a game, or more like being a player? So, just for an idea of how I would feel about it.
I would honestly, like I said earlier, I would liken it more to playing a PC game, but in an analog way, because you're interacting with a structure that someone has written for you in your own specific way. So you are following a trail that someone has set up for you, and they're usually, because a lot of solo games are not sandbox games but rather guided narratives, usually you're going to wind up like it. We mentioned casual Commander Shepard earlier. That's my metaphor that's going to be here, is casual Commander Shepard. It honestly, some solo games just feel like playing the Citadel DLC for Mass Effect 3. Like, this is the way, this is the situation, here are ways you can engage with it, pick one of these ways and go with it. If any of you have ever read a choose your own adventure novel, very similar to that. Gosh, an hour is a long time, and I did this for the bit, and I'm gonna do it for the bit, because I was like, no, this is my panel, I'm doing it. Do we wanna look at some solo games? Because I have 100, yes, I have a hand back there.
Hi there.
Hi.
I just picked up the 1,000-Year Vampire.
Ooh, good choice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a character in mind I could never really into it, and I'm really excited to try it out.
Mm-hmm.
But once you had listed in the panel was called As I Lay Dying, and I tried to look it up, and I can't seem to find it.
I got you. Hold on one second. You're so welcome. That was written by my friend Kiana.
Oh, cool.
So we're gonna pull that up. I think I may have mixed up My Last Undying Breath and As My Body Crumbles, which is fine. That was my fault. But this is a vampire this is a game about their last memories. So it is a really, really beautiful and wistful and mournful game, and I strongly recommend it. You can. This one is the same price as getting 125 games from the Solo But Not Alone Jam 4, or bundle. So there you go, there's, yes?
What's a recommendable solo game for someone who's still kind of dealing with the stigma of you can't get into a group, you have to be solo? What's something that kind of helps you push over the edge?
That's a really interesting question, thank you. Can I address the stigma first? Wow, if you're doing something by yourself, it doesn't mean you don't have friends. And anyone who tells you that is a big jerk.
Yeah.
And also, like, if you're in a group that you don't like, you're allowed to leave. So those are two things I feel really need to be reiterated in the tabletop space. Is I have a lot of friends and loved ones who treat tabletop like a second game, or a second job, rather. Of course it's a second game, whatever. But they treat it like a second job, and almost their fellow players or DM are like coworkers or a boss they don't particularly like, but they give them something they need, and you don't have to find that in a game. I promise you. Just that, with that reminder, I'm really grateful that you mentioned 1,000-Year-Old Vampire back there, because that's a really great place to start. That was designed by my friend Tim Hutchings, that is an award-winning solo game. And it is about the memories of a vampire over a very long span of time, and you get to switch out like different artifacts or different markings on your face or body that you picked up during different memories. But as you accrue more memories, you start losing some, because you can only have a set of 5 memories in any given time period. And if you want to add another memory, you have to lose another memory. So your memories start becoming fragmented and disjointed as you live longer and longer and longer. And you start to see how the human mind becomes something a little more alien, and something with its own particular set of memories and reasons why they view the world in a specific way. And I think that is such a cool concept for a solo game. And it's got a really interesting system that it is a roll and write. So like you're rolling a die and you're writing a memory that corresponds to a question attached to that number, but you're interpreting it in your own way. You figure out how it fits into your timeline or how it doesn't fit into your timeline, and how that changes your vampire as a person. Yes?
So one of the things I've found with a lot of these is a lot of solo games explore different mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting and unique mechanics. Can you talk about some of your favorite or the most unique and why those are?
Oh, I love that.
Why those resonate with you personally?
Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite mechanics in solo games is the Ace of Hearts from the Wretched and Alone SRD, which is every turn you're pulling a card from a deck of cards, but when you pull the Ace of Hearts, you put it aside, and you put 9 objects on it. So it can be 9, like, if I say 9 nuts, a bunch of people in this room are going to be like, nuts. You put like a bunch of nuts or screws or whatever on the Ace of Hearts, and certain rolls or certain pulls you make will allow you to remove objects. And removing all 9 objects from the Ace of Hearts is the only way to win. And I love that mechanic because it is this rush of hope every time you remove an object from the Ace of Hearts. So it's almost like the reverse of the tension of the tower, because it becomes, oh my god, I can finally remove something that's bothering me. And I think that is a really cool and interesting mechanic. I've seen games that use folding origami as a mechanic. So like folding different things gets you different outcomes. So something that might be a little more difficult to fold might get you a better outcome than something that is less difficult, but will cause you to be able to sort of like get through almost. So you're choosing between I want the thing I want versus I want the easiest path. And that is a really interesting method of doing it. I've seen tarot cards. As someone who collects tarot cards, I'm not actually super interested in that in a mechanic, because a lot of times when you're doing tarot cards, you're doing, oh, this is the archetypal version of the card, so that's the meaning we're going to go with, and we're not going to talk about card interactions, and we're not going to talk about, like, if this card is, you know, if the Six of Cups and the Six of Wands show up in the same pull, what does that mean? Does that have any effect? And I get that because there's a lot of variables, but I would really like to see tarot cards used in a more thoughtful way than just, ooh, this game is witchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So when I run games, the multiplayer games, where I'm the GM or I'm the player, sometimes I like to twist the rules a little bit. Like, okay, the rules don't technically say you can do this, but that'd be really cool if you could do it, so
Sure.
go ahead. How do you handle that in a solo situation? Do you find that you always stick to the letter of the rule, or do you find yourself making things better or worse or something like that?
I don't know that that's a question I've ever encountered, so I really appreciate it. Let me think about that for a sec. I find that when I am playing these solo games, something like a Fae Visitation, which is one of my favorite solo games, because it's about a Fae showing up and being like, oh yeah, by the way, you're my partner now. Come to Fairy with me, and that sounds nice. But I find that when I am handed a solo game with a series of expectations from the story, then if I like the expectations, I'm going to stick with them. And if I don't, I'm probably going to find something else to play, because this game is handed, well, I take this game, or this game is handed to me, either one. And this is, it is telling me what to expect from the experience. And if I don't like the experience as much as I thought I would, there's other experiences I can go with. So usually, if I find myself wanting to change like a core rule, I'm probably going to pick up a different game. If I find myself wanting to change a prompt around a little bit, probably going to change the prompt around a little bit. But like if it's something huge, like, I don't know, in my game that's in this bundle, I Have No Railgun and I Must Scream, in which we're playing a civilian, I'm probably not going to play that game if I want to play a mech pilot. Right? Like I might take scenarios from that game and put them in a mech pilot game. Like one of the newspaper headlines you can pull is like, county fair canceled due to mech apocalypse, local vendors association very upset. I might wind up, if I'm playing a game about a mech pilot, I might like, oh, that might be an interesting element to add, but if I want to play a game about a mech pilot and not a civilian during a mech apocalypse, I'm probably going to play a game that allows me to play a mech pilot. Yes?
I have something.
Go ahead.
When it comes to solo RPGs, I like something that's more conventional, that feels like it's a role-playing game, like with action and conflict and stuff. I mean, I played a little bit of Iron Sworn.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Any other suggestions for that, or do you not really?
When you say feels like a role-playing game, are you referring to feels like Dungeons & Dragons?
Kinda, like, you know, there's
Okay.
progression, there's action and stuff.
Yeah, there's actually a bunch of those in here. I'm actually looking directly at one about being a witcher traveling the world for the first time.
Okay.
So that's probably that's a good one. Let's see here.
What was that one called?
The Witcher one?
Yes.
The Path. This is The Path by Thirsty for Red. I'm going to pull it up on screen right now for you. And those of you who want to get that down, have a look. Let's see. Probably not roosting with your hot chicken boyfriend. Probably not. Like, I would absolutely play roosting with your hot chicken boyfriend, but probably not something I'd recommend for you. We deal in lead. I've heard a lot of really good things about this. This is a Weird West gunslinger game. So here are all their tags for it. It is a solo dungeon crawl Weird West game. And like I said, I'm just using examples from the solo but not alone bundle because, once again, it has 125 games for 10 money. I was not paid to advertise this. I just have a game in the bundle, and I'm friends with the person who runs the bundle, and it was a very good, easy resource to show people a lot of games at the same time.
Right.
Let's see. What else do we have? That would be good. We'll find one more. How do we feel about Shadow Wizard Money Gang?
I know one of my friends has a cosplay that's like that, dressed up as one of those. And there's like this song that's like really neat though, like this song is funded by the government. U.S. bombs are now legal.
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with that, but Shadow Wizard Money Gang is an option. This one, Adventurer's Respite, is very specifically a solo game you play in between sessions of D&D and D&D Light games to tell stories about what happened while your adventurer was on break. So that could be a cool one. And yeah, some solo games can be used to in conjunction with multiplayer games too, which I think is another really cool fact about solo games, because you can sort of use them to build out your more standard RPG and like share them with people at your table. That's another great use. Do we have any other requests for tabletop games, solo games? Because that was fun. Yeah.
Mine just kind of been, so in the past I've looked for solo games before and I've done it through bundle. I get overwhelmed really easily, especially because I think the last bundle I got was I believe it was the big Ukraine one, which had a lot of solo games.
Yeah.
After a while, the fatigue sort of set in. Is there sort of like, I've heard outside of circles of like Thousand Year Vampires, sort of like this is like the killer solo. Do you think there's maybe like one or two others you'd sort of recommend as like this is like the real? Not saying that any of the other games are bad, mind you. It's just well, you sort of just like sell the concept to that.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because this bundle. Thank you, LibreOffice. This bundle comes with an entire spreadsheet that you can find tags to do different games. And yes, I'm going to show you some games that I would actually recommend. But you did mention being overwhelmed by choice, so I figured I would show you a sortable spreadsheet if you're feeling like you want to do a horror game. And you can search by tag.
I definitely do appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Gosh. Yeah, I would, Thousand-Year Old Vampire is a classic for a reason. It's very easy to play, very, very visceral, very easy to understand. I will recommend you one of my favorite solo games, which I mentioned earlier. Fairy Court Visitation, which is a super cute, very fairy mischievous. You can play it darker. You can play it darker or more lighthearted. It is a game about being courted by a royal fairy, and it's really fun. I really enjoyed it personally. Very easy to play. Honestly, probably the thing that got me into solo games is Fairy Court Visitation. Let me see if any of the ones I really like are in here.
Is that one in this bundle?
That one is not in this bundle, unfortunately. It is on sale, though. If I may be so bold as to recommend I Have No Railgun and I'm a Scream, which is my game. You can also get it for free if you see the link up there at the Golden Cobra website if you want the less cute laid out version. And since this one is a love letter to mech anime and mech games, specifically to 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, if any of you have played that. I am not usually a huge mech girl, but that game just devoured me over a week. I'm like, I have to write something based on this. So I would definitely recommend that, but that's also me being a little conceited. So, you know. Oh, shit. One second. Portal at Hill, oh, no, it's already in my collection. Chill. The Portal at Hill House. Very interesting, very cool cosmic horror done in a way that is not strictly Cthulhu. It's kind of architectural horror. It has a little bit of influence from House of Leaves, but it is a house that is dragging you somewhere else. And it is really creepy. It has great build-up. Strongly recommend this game. I saw some other hands. Your hand? What's up?
Sorry. What's like a genre or concept that you would really love to see explored? I know you've already made one, but sometimes you might get someone else do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've actually made a couple. I only have one in this bundle. I have seen, so a lot of the stuff I personally enjoy, I've seen a lot. I find a lot in solo games. I love personal horror. You see that so much in solo games. I love romance, again, something you see in solo games a lot. I don't know, I think I'd really like to see people get a little more visceral or weird with mechanics. I would love mechanics that involve moving your body to do something, or like there's a couple of self-care solo RPGs, which is a great way to do it. I mean, Habitica is a huge app for a reason. And if you decide that you want to do it more in analog form instead of in smartphone form, there are solo games for that. But I would love to see something that uses cooking or writing recipes as a mechanic. I think that would be super cool. I've seen tabletops and LARPs that do that, but I haven't seen that in a solo game before. And like maybe collecting recipes from generations of a family and essentially not making a recipe blog as a solo game, but like making a collection of recipes, and each one is associated with some part of that character's lineage or exploration or whatever. I think would be super cool. And like if the character cooks it, you have to write an entry about it and like how it brings them back to that place. I think that, yeah, I think that's what I want. Yeah.
So when you finish a game,
Mm-hmm.
do you end up with like a thing, or like what do you do when the game is over?
So that's a really interesting question, because that's not actually something we ask ourselves a lot about tabletops or LARPs, is you always have stuff left over from a game, right? Like you always have a character sheet, or you always have dice, you always have the figure of the character. And it's interesting because we don't think of those as artifacts of play in the same way that we think of like a journal that we've made for a solo game. So yes, you are gonna have something left over, but this is not to argue with you in any way. I think it's interesting that we consider things like that, because yeah, you do have an artifact of play left over. You have this thing that you went through, you have this document, you have these notes. Now you have this object of art, what do you want to do with it? And to go back to your question, that would actually also be a really interesting thing to have with solo games. And I do believe, no, I think the Archivist does that, actually. There's a solo game about playing solo games and reviewing them and like cataloging your gameplay. I believe that one's called The Archivist. I have to look it up. I promise I will look that up after this panel for you. Yes?
This is almost sort of bouncing off that question and arguably begging a question about solo games. But as we talk about like parallel play, especially with video games, or things like that, with your own thing, are there any solo games sort of with the idea that you play yourself and your friend might play by themselves and compare experiences, or have some sort of overlap after the fact?
I don't know that I've seen that, but I would love to see that. That's a great idea. Like, okay, hold on. I gotta tap into the Solo Game Psychic Network. No, but I think that's a really great idea, and that is something I would like to explore further, yeah. Yes?
So, yeah, I had a similar question to
Mhm.
that. Like, so where do you, like, talk about
You're not gonna like my answer, it's Twitter. Most of the talk I've seen about solo games and solo game design has been on Twitter. If I had a better answer for you, I would love to give it, but unfortunately my brain has been fried by the Blue Hell site, so.
There's also subreddits, right?
Yes.
Yes, there's.
We're gonna go on a quick exploration and see if there's a solo game subreddit.
Yep,
I'm pretty sure
I'm pretty sure there is. I've been there, I think.
Alright, whoever finds it will applaud. Alright, go look for it, and whoever finds it first, we'll give them a round of applause. How's that? We're about to give a room full of nerds validation. Find me the solo game subreddit. No, I'm serious. What's your name? What's your name? Amanda. Everybody give a round of applause to Amanda. And can you give us the name of that subreddit again, please?
There's actually more than one apparently.
Oh shit.
So there's one that's r/solo_roleplaying, and then there's r/solo RPG play. The
Cool.
first one is substantially bigger.
Oh yeah. Holy shit. Ta-da.
Yeah, fuck Twitter.
Yeah, that's right. Elon Musk snubbed me at a party once, so. Yeah, fuck him. I wish there was more to the story than Elon Musk snubbed me at a party once. It doesn't get more interesting once you add context, but.
Write a solo game about it.
Yeah, okay. I can do that. The stories I could tell about tech millionaires in Palo Alto. I used her with a mustache.
Sure. So following up on the self-care solo games, are there standout games that you might recommend or speak about when it comes to like engaging with like day-to-day events or your own feelings and thoughts? So kind of looking inward with the day-to-day stuff.
So more like slice of life, like journaling sort of games?
Yeah, something in that category. And,
Cool.
Yeah, there's ones that I guess stand out or have particular mechanics that you might highlight.
Well, luckily, I think Roosting with Your Hot Chicken Boyfriend, which is a solo game about emotional cleansing and growth, is actually a good idea here. We're going to click on that one just because the title really drew me in. Here's your hot chicken boyfriend.
Contains light artistic nudity. Good.
I love him. We're dating now, I'm sorry. He's my hot chicken boyfriend. Yeah, no, but more seriously, there are a lot of journaling games that do. Your Last Day on Earth might actually be a good one, especially because I'm sure a whole bunch of us have been feeling apocalypse anxiety recently. Can't imagine why that would be, I say with my international relations degree specializing in post-Cold War politics in Eastern Europe. I'm fine. Yeah, let's have a look. Oh, this is cute. Waffles exist. This is a game about remembering good stuff exists. And this is one of those self-care solo games I talked about earlier. And I'm really glad y'all are asking me for suggestions because it sort of allows me to showcase solo games, because something I really struggle with is being like, why should you play solo games? Oh, because they're good. And I like them. But I think it really helps to just kind of be able to show what is out there. I will go back here and then I will go to you. Yes?
Two hopefully quick ones. First, I'm sorry to make your bones ache, but are there any recs for solo games set during the Cold War? And second, is native RPGs. If you have excess of polygonal dice and you want to roll it, solo game mechanic, any recommendations for that?
Well, I'm going to recommend recommend you one of my other games for polyhedral dice, because I specifically actually wrote this game because like it didn't have a shape yet. I had an idea for the game, but it didn't have a shape yet until a friend of mine got these really beautiful dice, just a beautiful set of dice from Chessex, and was like, I want something to roll all these dice on. And I'm like, hey, I'm gonna write a game that uses every die in a single standard set of Chessex dice. And this is a game about being the mistress or paramour of a tyrannical monarch. And they genuinely love you, you genuinely love them, but they are a bad person, and you have to be there for their downfall, and then figure out what happens to you after that. So that is my recommendation for a game where you roll a standard set of polyhedral dice. And it'll hurt your feelings. It'll hurt your feelings real good. Remember when I said I really like personal horror and romance in solo games? Yeah, I love hurting my own feelings. I'm really good at it. I don't know that I've ever seen a solo game set during the Cold War. I'm sure there is. There are many Cold War enthusiasts in tabletop games. You may have noticed this. This is, side note, actually because tabletop RPGs are one of the biggest hobbies on military bases, in American military bases, because they do not require anything that is banned on the military base. They are less expensive than drugs, and usually, and they are easily transportable. Here.
Now what about games that focus on humor? Light side of things.
Cool. Why, this is a 2-player game. Why is this in my solo games? There are many humor games in solo RPGs. You will see some of them. Let's go ahead and find some. Probably not Implode. Probably not that one. We're going to skip that one for now. We're going to go back up. If there are no humor games in the 125, I'm gonna be so mad. The chicken one, yeah.
What about the hamster one?
It's a self-care solo game about llamas. We love a llama. Hold on. What are we looking at? Oh yeah, you're right. We have a spreadsheet. Holy shit, you're so smart. Look, I have been running LARPs for like 8 hours a day since I got here, and now I'm like, everybody's finally listening to me. Oh, fuck.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I love you guys. Thank you for being such an engaged panel audience. It really makes this easier. Hold on, I got it. Oh, what? Cats know things. We're gonna find cats know things. Cats know everything about everyone. So this is a humorous little social intrigue game where you are a cat. And you know everything about everyone because you listen to them. Because you're a cat. People don't care what they say around cats. Was I the only one? That better not be the only one. Nope. Man, that's really depressing when I search funny or silly or humor. It's like, nope. But yeah, no, that is one. Oh, I wrote one. I should show that off. Hold on. So. Welcome to Scare B&B. I hope you like the reviews. They're one of my favorite parts of the game. They're the top 3 quotes. Yeah, I made the mistake of submitting this to a Halloween game jam. And most of the other people in the game jam were video game developers. And yes, I was charging $3.99 for this at the time. I'm now charging $5 for it. But I also had 100 free copies available. And this video game developer decided, you are scamming people because you don't have any screenshots of gameplay. It's a book, sir. So I left the review up there. But yes, this is a game about playing a ghost in a bed and breakfast, and Halloween is coming up, and weird events started happening around the bed and breakfast that you are either, it's not something you've ever dealt with, or like new people are brought in, or this is just something that happens yearly, and as a ghost you are used to the supernatural elements and you are dealing with that as they come. I really love domestic necromancers and domestic ghosts, and this is a really fun way to just sort of play that out in a silly, lighthearted way. Yes?
I was actually going to ask on that same topic, mostly because I play Vampire the Masquerade.
I'm sorry.
I play a One of my characters is a Hekata.
Oh, cool.
But are there good solo games? I don't like to lean to more the philosophical nature of that in this case. I'm not sure of my character.
Sure.
So much as like what's it like being dead?
Yeah.
What's it like after death? What's it like if you come back? Do any games like that?
Yes. Hold on. Lost Among the Starlit Wreckage. This can be played either as a dual game or a solo game, so going back to the question we had earlier about parallel play, apparently there is a game that does that. This is a game about being a mecha pilot who's stranded in an asteroid field in their dead mecha and or their rescuer. So like that's sort of being in that space. With My Last Undying Breath is another good example of that, the one we showed earlier. There's a lot of contemplative games about being in a space and like existing in that space and how that space makes you feel. And we can find some more in here. Also, I should clarify that, oh, this is a good one, UV on the Pale. This is about a monster in a lonely place when the lonely place starts being encroached upon by humans and how that affects them. And I should clarify, when I make fun of Vampire the Masquerade, it is as the person who wrote the appendix for Consider It Play for V5. That is one of my credits. And I'm very proud of that, but me and White Wolf Paradox do not have a great relationship anymore. So we're just gonna...
I was going to ask you how you felt about the news book roleplays. Now I feel it's okay.
Moving on.
Sorry.
It's okay. We could talk about it after this. Yeah.
So one of the things I'm interested in for solo RPGs is the very dark horror stuff. Sort of the opposite of like the self-care one.
Oh yeah.
It's really meant to rescue like Horse Girl and stuff like that.
Yep.
About mutilation and things. How do you manage your emotions during that? And because you're trying to push yourself, but do you try to do something nice afterwards? Do you try to put yourself in a certain frame of mind in order to really experience it? Can you talk to someone about sort of bringing yourself to that depth of emotion?
I'm so glad you asked that. Thank you so much. I did want to recommend The Wretched for your interest in extreme horror, because this is very specifically a solo game based on the vibes of the original Alien. And you are in a derelict spaceship and there is something hunting you, and you can try and get the spaceship up and running. You probably won't, but it's great for that. I am a person with a whole bunch of fun mental health abbreviations, shall we say. So I am also a safety designer, and I am someone who cares a great deal about emotional safety and consent in role-playing games. And something I do is I do push myself, to be clear. I really enjoy what some LARP designers refer to as type 2 fun, which type 1 fun is, yes, I am having fun, I am happy, I am enjoying this, and type 2 fun is, oh god, I'm enjoying this, but fuck. And I find I take a lot from the kink world here, right? Is I do aftercare, I check in with myself, I make sure that what I'm doing is something that I want to be doing and not something that I feel I have to be doing. Because discussing, when we were talking earlier about like the stigma of playing solo games, and thank you for bringing that up again, that was really cool. The stigma of playing solo games versus not having a tabletop group, and the idea that like, oh, I have to play this because I started this, right? And like, not giving into the sunk cost fallacy is so hard. So hard, especially in, you know, it'll show up sometimes in social situations as FOMO too. So something I find that is really helpful for me is checking in with myself, actually just putting down the thing and going, do I really want to be doing this? And oftentimes the answer is yes. I just need a minute to like, oh, I haven't eaten in several hours because I have the ADHD. Or I, you know, my muscles are really tight because I've been journaling, so I'm gonna go take a bath. But really doing a quick body scan, checking in with myself, being like, what hurts, what doesn't hurt, what do I need to address right now that will cause my brain to be clear and safe and sober? Yeah, some games do actually have checklists for this. I don't think the Wretched does, but a couple of games do have like, hey, after each entry or each note or whatever, stand up, have a stretch, think about what you wrote, think about what you want to change. And I think that's really super cool and helpful as well. Yes?
A big gateway for a lot of people getting into TTRPGs are like live play podcasts.
Yep.
Is there a similar kind of ecosystem?
I was so glad you asked because I actually got to guest star on a new one called Rolling Alone. That is by Craig Edgar. He just started his second game, which is a playthrough of Butterfly on the Wheel, which I wrote. But he plays through solo games, but he dramatizes them as though they're audio dramas. So, you know, he will go through the solo game, but he'll sort of set the scene, and then he will have played the solo game as though he is writing a script, and then he will have people act out what he played out in the solo game. And it's really cool. I'm a huge fan. So that is the Rolling Alone podcast. Yes?
Are there any games that incorporate like physical activity into the mechanics, like, you know, check your step counter and all that? Remind me to get
not that I have seen, but it is something we did discuss in an earlier question, is that I'd like to have more like physically involved solo games. I think that would be awesome. Yes?
Going off again about the physical movement, and also just accessibility to these, I know a lot of them are very writing heavy. Are you aware of any that are either like video or audio based that might just be more?
Yes, Banana Chan wrote one, which is, I'm not remembering the name off the top of my head. I may have to go look up her games, but they did one which is an audio video one where you film short YouTube videos as a member of a cult who is slowly falling further into that cult. So you're essentially vlogging your fall into this cult. I will have to look that up after this panel, but I will let you know what that was. Yes?
I might have mentioned it earlier, I'm not sure.
That's okay.
But you had made comments about tarot-based ones. Not a lot of them are very, they don't really branch out as far as like what
Right.
But is there any tarot favorite games that you do know of that you would recommend?
Anamnesis.
Okay.
Sorry.
I like your cord, by the way. It's very cute.
Thank you very much.
I kickstarted Animesis. I love that game.
Hell yeah. Anamnesis was designed by a mutual of mine. I don't know that we're close enough to call each other friends. But Anamnesis is a tarot-based RPG that has a really cool SRD. So you can actually write games that are hacks of Anamnesis, which is very cool. They're very open about sharing this rule set too, which is awesome. But yeah, definitely check out Anamnesis. That is probably the tarot game I would recommend. And you can also see it was nominated for an Emmy, which is very cool. Yes?
If you've got ideas, but no design experience, are there like matchmaking sessions where you kind of like pitch and work with someone who knows what they're doing? Or is it just kind of just go in, dive in, set the
I have no idea. I genuinely do not know, but that sounds like something that should exist. Like, honestly, what I did is I read a bunch of solo RPGs and figured out what I liked about them, and then I pulled from there. Yes?
I was going to say, following up on the last question, game jams specifically targeted to like tabletop game that could be a good way to kind of get your foot in the door and maybe meet other folks and learn.
Definitely, yeah. Something I really love about Itch, and again, not paid by Itch, just very much enjoy using the platform, is it is very much a platform where you can sort of practice. Like, there are game jams, you can make your games free or pay what you want. There's a lot of ways to, like, hey, I would like to get my game into the world, but I don't, feel like it could be published by Drive-Thru RPG or whatever. But I would like people to be able to access this game. It's just really good for that. And it's a great way to get practice. It's a great way to get eyes on your game. It's a great way to figure out what you really enjoy putting out into the world, I think. Because, like, once I got an Itch, I have a couple of tabletops I've written. They're not my favorite, but I have written them, and I'm proud of that. But I really discovered during the pandemic, I love writing solo games. I love writing a very intimate experience to hand to someone and be like, I want to see how you work your way through this situation. I want to see how your brain addresses this little package I've handed you. And it's very special to me, especially because I also write like personal zines and political zines, and I find the experience of small self-publishing to be very intimate and enjoyable. We have about 4 minutes left. So does anybody want to hit me with any really weird recommendation requests? Yeah.
Someone else mentioned comedy, you've mentioned horror. One of my favorite genres is comedy horror.
Oh, hell yeah.
Are there solo RPGs in that genre you'd recommend?
Let's find out. We're gonna go to the table. Ooh, adorable. I don't know. I'm not sure. I will get back to you on that. Yes.
I just had a thought that maybe I'd recommend my mom one of those. Two things with her. She likes crime novels, crime type stories, solving crimes, but she does not like horror.
She does not like horror?
No, cannot do horror.
Cozy mysteries.
Cozy mysteries.
Got it. And look, it's also, it can be a comedy or a horror, so I found it. We did it. Teamwork, by which I mean I desperately clicked the first thing that looked appropriate. Wow, hey guys, we got through more than an hour of me just desperately rambling into the microphone, so thank you for being an amazing audience. I have business cards if you want them, it's okay if you don't, but I really appreciate you coming out to my little Saturday panel on solo games, and I hope it inspired you to check at least one of them out. Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you again.